The first signs that something was wrong should have alerted the Siver people the moment Cadet Flinch was found outside his cell, wandering around the kitchen area of their flagship, the Voidbreaker. Yet Captain Inner had simply ordered his staff to return him to the cell, assuming it was merely a minor oversight by the guards or a small equipment failure. Hours later, Captain Inner stood on the bridge. His yellow bipedal form was as imposing as always. His two antennae quivered as they always did when he was deep in thought, picking up the various scents from the bridge. His gray eyes, large and multifaceted, reflected the dozens of virtual screens that floated before him. That was when Security Chief Zix stormed onto the bridge, his own yellow form rigid with tension. His antennae were pressed flat against his skull, a clear sign of distress. "Captain," he said in their native tongue, "the cell is empty. We can't find the human anywhere." The bridge fell silent. Every officer turned from their station, their gray eyes widening. Navigation Officer Tirik's fingers froze over his console. Communications Specialist Vren's antennae shot straight up in alarm. Even the usually unflappable Weapons Officer Keln swiveled in his chair, his expression grave. Enner's antennae throbbed once, twice. He turned slowly to face his crew, his voice calm despite the situation. "Confirm with all stations. Has any escape pod been launched?" "Negative, Captain," came the swift reply from multiple officers after a flurry of console checks. "All pods accounted for. No breach in the hull, no unauthorized shuttle departures." "Then the human is still aboard," Enner concluded, his mind already calculating the implications. "Initiate a full bioscan of all compartments, every room, every corridor, every maintenance shaft." A collective intake of breath swept through the bridge. Such a scan was tremendously expensive in terms of resources. It would require pulling crew from their regular duties, disrupting personal quarters during rest cycles, and essentially turning the entire ship upside down. But Enner saw no alternative. "All stop," he commanded. "Divert power from non-essential systems to the scanners. I want every cubic meter of this ship searched." The Voidbreaker shuddered slightly as its massive engines powered down, coming to a complete stop in the vast emptiness between stars. What followed was chaos with a hint of order. Security teams swept through the ship in coordinated effort, their handheld scanners beeping as they checked every possible hiding spot. Crew members stood outside their quarters as security personnel rifled through personal belongings, checking closets, storage compartments, even the spaces behind wall panels. The dining halls were emptied and searched. The medical bay was turned inside out. Engineering crews crawled through every access tunnel and maintenance duct. Hours passed. Enner remained on the bridge, growing increasingly frustrated as he received the reports. "Deck 7 clear. Deck 8 clear. Engineering Section B clear." The humans seemed to have vanished into thin air, which should have been impossible on a ship with no teleportation technology. It was nearly 6 hours later when the call finally came through. "Captain?" Zix's voice crackled over the comm, exhaustion evident in his tone. "We found him." "Where?" "The food storage room, sir. He's eaten approximately half our supply of premium rations. The Keelak meat we were saving for the victory celebration. The imported Threll wine from the Admiral's personal collection. Even the ceremonial gyr paste from the upcoming religious observance." Enner's antennae drooped. "Bring him back to his cell. Triple the guard. I want a full investigation into how this happened." The investigation that followed was thorough and embarrassing. The engineering team discovered that the human had somehow manipulated the ventilation grating in his cell, a feat that should have been impossible given the tool restrictions. The grating, designed to be tamper-proof, had been painstakingly loosened over what must have been days, using nothing but determination and possibly his fingernails. The ventilation shaft, barely wide enough for a Siver child, had somehow accommodated the human's larger frame as he crawled through the ship's innards like some kind of fleshy parasite. The solution was expensive and time-consuming. The entire engineering team was pulled from their regular duties during the night cycle to weld thick metal grids over every ventilation opening in every cell. The work was exhausting, the engineers grumbling about the overtime as sparks flew and metal sealed against metal. By morning, every possible exit had been secured with thick barriers that would require plasma cutters to breach. The next duty cycle dawned with the crew exhausted but confident. The cells were now escape-proof. Enner stood ready on the bridge to contact the human fleet about a prisoner exchange, already composing his demands in his head. They had captured this cadet Flinch during a skirmish near the Helix Nebula, and surely the humans would want their soldier back in exchange for 2 Civer pilots they held. "Captain!" Zix's voice came through the comm again, and Enner immediately recognized the tone. His antennae wilted. "Don't tell me." "The human apparently stole a fusion welder from the engineering team yesterday during the cell modifications. He used it to superheat and remove the door hinges from inside his cell. He's loose again." The bridge erupted in a mess of conversations, every voice filled with disbelief and frustration. Enner stood frozen for a moment, his mind struggling to process this information. The human had been right there, among the engineering team, and had somehow pilfered their tools without anyone noticing? What followed was a series of incidents that would have been comedic if they weren't so costly and frustrating. Each day brought new humiliations, new failures, new evidence of just how unprepared they were to contain a single human soldier. The second shipwide search yielded nothing. Hours of scanning, more disruption, more overtime pay for the crew. They gave up as the next shift began, resigned to the fact that the human was somehow hiding in some impossible space their scanners couldn't penetrate. It was only when they tried to power up the main engines that they discovered the truth. The core wouldn't initialize properly. A maintenance team was dispatched and found a loose panel on the bridge. On the bridge itself, right under their antennae. Inside, wedged into a space that defied physics, was the human. He'd been there for hours, possibly since before the search began, chewing through various cables. The damage assessment was devastating. Primary navigation relays severed, communication arrays compromised, and somehow he'd managed to reroute the waste recycling system to vent into the senior officer's quarters. 2 days later, after another expensive round of cell modifications, this time with force fields and biometric locks, the human didn't even try to escape. Instead, they found he'd somehow been fermenting a crude alcohol using his daily ration of fruit. When the guards found him, he was barely conscious, having poisoned himself with his improvised spirits. The medical team spent 12 hours purging the toxins from his system, using expensive medications and equipment time that should have been reserved for crew members. Each incident compounded Enner's frustration. The human, this cadet Flinch, had cost them more in repairs, overtime, medical supplies, and lost productivity than a small battle would have. The crew morale was plummeting. Security officers were developing nervous tics. Engineers were refusing to go near the detention block without full combat gear. Finally, after the 7th incident involving the humans somehow reprogramming the food dispensers to only serve dessert items, causing a shipwide nutritional crisis, Enner had had enough. He stood on the bridge, his antennae drooping with exhaustion, and opened a channel to the human fleet. The human captain who appeared on the screen was trying visibly not to smile. Captain Stone, according to the identification protocols, was a middle-aged human male with gray streaking through his dark hair. His eyes sparkled with obvious mirth. "Captain Enner," he said formally, though his lips showed a smile. "What can I do for you?" "Take him back," Enner said without preamble, abandoning all pretense of negotiation. "Please, take Cadet Flinch back. We'll return him immediately. No conditions, no prisoner exchange necessary. Just take him." Stone's composure finally broke. He laughed, a deep, genuine sound that made Enner's antennae tense with irritation. Having some trouble with our cadet, are we? Trouble? Enner's voice rose to a pitch that would have been embarrassing under other circumstances. Your cadet has dismantled half our ship's systems. He's consumed a month's worth of premium rations. He's corrupted our food dispensers, rerouted our waste systems, and somehow, managed to reprogram our emergency alert system to play what he calls Earth music at maximum volume during sleep cycles. Stone was now laughing so hard he had to wipe tears from his eyes. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. He gasped. It's just so... flinch. That sounds about right. About right? Enner's antennae stood straight up in indignation. This is normal behavior for your soldiers? For cadets? Oh, absolutely. You're lucky, actually. No one's pregnant, no one's been seriously injured, and he hasn't figured out how to brew anything yet. I'd say you got off easy. He smiled warmly. We'll take him back, Captain Enner. Send him over whenever you're ready. And thank you for taking such good care of him. The experience will have been educational for him, I'm sure. As the communication ended, Enner slumped in his command chair. Hadn't figured out how to brew anything yet? That only made him laugh quietly. Around him, his bridge crew exchanged glances that spoke volumes. They had captured a human soldier alive, expecting to gain valuable intelligence or negotiation leverage. Instead, they'd learned a lesson that would be whispered through civil military academies for generations. Never, ever underestimate the chaos a bored human could create, especially one who was maliciously creative.